What's up, you guys? Steven with Magic Meadow Money. The Star City Games Tour is back, or so everybody thought. So in case you missed it, Star City Games tweeted out soon a nice cryptic text. They did this yesterday, July 19th. Made everyone all excited. Ooh, this cryptic text. Clearly, they're going to be announcing Tabletop Magic is coming back. They're bringing back the SCG Tour all over the East Coast of the U.S., and then today they revealed that their cryptic message was not so exciting. It was the return of satellite tournaments on Arena. But they did include one tabletop event, which there's going to be qualifications for. It's going to be a big old weekend in Virginia, in Roanoke, on October 29th through the 31st, I think, so the Halloween weekend. Not exactly what everyone was hoping for. A little bit of a bait and switch, kind of pulling the rug out from everyone, but this is still an exciting announcement. There is still going to be a big paper tournament for Magic, which is at least an introduction back into paper Magic. We all know it's going to come back eventually. At some point, there'll be big tournaments again, whether SCG is doing them or another company decides to start doing things. Who knows about Grand Prix or Magic Fest and what Magic's going to do about that. We're going to talk about organized play from Magic's perspective in a minute here. For the paper event that's going to be the SCG Con on Halloween weekend, we don't have many details yet, but it is a full weekend. There's going to be a lot of invites sent to it, and it could be potentially like a Magic Fest where there's public events and it's like, oh yeah, there's the main event that you have to qualify for, but then there could be public events. We don't know yet. Someone asked that and they did say maybe details to come. So potentially this could be a bigger event where even if you don't qualify for it, it could be something where you could go and play in paper Magic, have a big, huge tournament, and it could be really exciting for people. With this announcement, the biggest question on everybody's mind is, when are we going to return to organized play? Whether that's through Wizards or through Star City Games, we're going to talk about both of those. But before we do, make sure to hit subscribe and join the Wolf Pack. It's where you belong. We could potentially see a return to the SCG Tour maybe this winter, but with the holidays rolling around, and that's usually lower attendance anyway, it could be January. So maybe January 2022, if they did this, we know they would hit it up with Modern. Like, there's just no question. Modern is where it's at. With Modern Horizons 2, and with there being no standard events, and with Standard being a rotating format, and no one owning standard cards, and half of Standard wasn't even opened because it was released while there was no in-person play, so no one has collections, everyone's going to be playing Modern, and that's just going to be what they're due. We know the first tour is going to be Modern, and it's going to be exciting. Everyone's going to love to see these paper cards. Now there's just retro frames and extended arts, all those different fancy variants of all these cards. The commentators get to figure out what cards are what. That's going to be a big challenge for them, but they'll figure it out, and we'll be able to see all of these cards in paper, and that's what we're going to love. Will they do some standard events as well? My guess is surely they'll do some standard events. Maybe the only standard events they do at first will be the team structured, so that way you can have a Modern and like a Pioneer or Legacy or Historic or whatever, and then standard, so that way only a third of the people in the room have to have a standard deck. We'll see, but they're definitely going to want to bring standard back. It's going to be post-rotation. You're going to hope that there's returned in-store play with a couple of sets at that point, right? I guess it'll be 3 sets, right? Because there'll be the D&D set, and then there'll be the 2 Innistrad sets by the time we hit January. So, and then another set coming out then soon. So there definitely could be at that point enough of standard that has been opened in paper to say, hey, those first few sets, Zendikar Rising and Strixhaven and Kaldheim, those cards are going to be a little bit more difficult to access, but you'll be able to get them, and they're going to do something to promote standard. Maybe they'll do their own little flashback sales to say, hey, discounted product if you want to play standard. Here are the older sets that were harder to get to. I think that would be really smart. It would help promote the game, so I wouldn't be surprised to see those types of promos happen if they're trying to push standard into being part of their tour. Now, if they do team tournaments, is it going to be Legacy or is it going to be Pioneer? And when Pioneer was first announced back in the day, back in 2019, and it was released, and there was 6 months of Pioneer. It existed as a format. And there was a lot of bannings happening. It was a crazy wild, wild west, and different things were getting broken. And basically they said, hey, here community, here's a format. Prove to us what cards should be broken and what cards should be banned, and then we'll ban those as we go. And then the world shut down, and we didn't get a chance to really play Pioneer, and the format kind of died off. Now, they need some type of non-modern, non-standard format. Like, Modern at this point is too big, it's too expensive, it's really inaccessible for a lot of players, but there needs to be a home for cards, that are post-standard. That's kind of the idea of Modern originally, is like this post-standard rotation. You kind of still get to play with standard cards, and they get a longer shelf life before they get, kind of rotated out of realistically being played in a format. Whether that's Pioneer or Historic, and they turn Historic into paper, I don't care, it doesn't matter, but they need something, and I think they will push one or the other. I think having both is not not the best. I think it's just confusing, and they're too similar of formats as far as card legality. So just clean it up, make it one or the other, or some amalgamation and hybrid of the two, but whatever. They're going to do something, and hopefully we have these team tournaments that's going to get everyone excited and playing Magic again with their friends, which is what we all want to do. Now, as far as Wizards of the Coast returning to organized play, that's going to be really interesting and big. Timeline, not sure when that's going to happen, but a couple months ago they announced the death of the MPL, right? The Magic Pro League, where they said, hey, if you're a member of the Magic Pro League, the Magic Elite, we're going to pay you a salary. You'll be a Wizards employee. You're going to make $75K a year to play Magic full time. The dreams come true. Awesome. Okay, well, that's dead. They're no longer doing that. And so with the MPL no longer being here, we don't know what OP will look like, but we do know OP will continue to exist. It's too important to the game to not exist. People say, oh, 2020 proved that they don't need Grand Prix and all that stuff in order to exist. What it will look like, I'm not sure, but organized play is just too important to a game. You can't not have it, right? It drives marketing. It's huge, gets people excited about the new sets and opening new cards and playing new sets and opening new packs, drafting new formats, things like that. It helps drive player excitement, right? Opportunity to play in big events and have new opportunities, new experiences, meet new friends, socialize, expand their social circles, and it's really exciting. And then also player commitment. It gets people really motivated to say, hey, I'm going to take this game a little more seriously. I want to get good at this game, become an accomplished player, and really accomplish something, and which frankly also leads to being a repeat customer, right? When you're really committed to a game. So organized play is really important, and they're going to change the face of it. So when it comes to having a Pro Tour, there's two main levers that you have to balance and you can pull. On one end, you have accessibility, right? Being able to qualify for the Pro Tours so people who are new to the game can access and qualify and become a technically professional Magic player. Even if they're not a full-time Magic player, they can play at the professional level. On the other end of the spectrum, you have the lever of repeatability and longevity, meaning, hey, you can do this, and once you start qualifying, you can actually become a full-time Magic Pro player. Now, PV made a great video about this where he revealed a lot of the details and stuff that was talked about in the MPL meeting specifically. You can go watch his video about that. I'll link it in the description below. That video is really a lot of details about what it'll look like. We do know that there will no longer be full-time Magic players as far as playing paper. Streamers, other things like that, you can do that. But being able to just say, hey, I'm a Platinum Pro, and I'm qualified for the next year of events and Pro Tours, that's not the case. So with the MPL, the Magic Pro League, they really swung the pendulum all the way to one side. And they said, hey, for the elite few, if you're a pro Magic player, you are a pro Magic player. You can do this, you can expect a real reliable income, and this can be your thing. And if you're outside of the club, enjoy looking in. And that ultimately failed. Now, you could make complaints about the system itself. I'm not going to dive into that. That's a subject for another day. But overall, it didn't work, right? It wasn't driving good marketing. It wasn't driving player excitement. It wasn't driving player commitment because you couldn't get in. It was too inaccessible. If you weren't a pro and you weren't in the MPL, you weren't going to become one anytime soon. Everyone was locked in year over year. It didn't work. So my guess now is that they're going to swing the pendulum all the way to the other side. And they're just going to say, hey, it is now time for you to become a Magic Pro player. Like, you can just spike a tournament and you can go and get there. And it's not going to be this inaccessible dream that people can't accomplish. Now, the dream isn't the same. You don't get flights around the world to your Pro Tours, and you don't get to see the whole world. What was their old saying? They had some slogan of like, play the game, see the world, or something like that. That's no longer going to be the case, but it is going to be more accessible and more people get a chance to. And you're going to go, you'll get a ticket to your regional Pro Tour, and you don't get a free flight to Europe if you're here in the US, or all the way to Japan or something cool like that, extravagant. But you can get a ticket to LA or to Vegas or to New York, wherever, right? You get to be able to move within your region in the world and still get to see the part of the world. Think about it this way. Here's an example. Let's say that every Pro Tour has 2,000 seats. We'll just use big round numbers to make it easy. You have 500 seats that are for Platinum Pro players. And you have another 500 seats for Gold invites, right? And then you have another 500 seats for Silver invites. So of your 2,000 seats, 1,500 of them are taken up by people who have been in the previous Pro Tour. And they played for the previous Pro Tour and they qualified for the next one through one way or another. That only leaves 500 seats for people who are qualifying who didn't play at the previous Pro Tour. Well, now you can just say, scrap that. Now, if you play at a Pro Tour, maybe the top 500 people will get some type of Silver invite equivalent. They'll probably change the naming system and all that stuff. But essentially saying, hey, the top 500 finishers of the 2,000, they get an invite for the next Pro Tour, and that's it. The other 1,500 seats are now going to be people who qualified for that Pro Tour specifically, who didn't necessarily play at the last one, or at least didn't qualify from the performance at previous events. I think, and maybe they give some buys and things like that towards your PPTQs. Like maybe there's some type of, good job you played at a Pro Tour, you get some little advantage to string together invites, but it's not going to be the same, and it's going to be much more rotation, and there's going to be a lot more people who get a chance to play at least one Pro Tour during their lifetime. So they're really spreading the experience out, and instead of going deep and letting some people do it for their whole lives and their whole careers, they're saying no, but everyone gets a little bit of a taste of what it's like to play at a Pro Tour, which I think makes a lot of sense with how much the game has grown. And overall, I think that's really an exciting thing. Spreading the wealth out, it makes it more exciting. A little anecdote here. Back in the day, back at Pro Tour Ixalan, we had a local player here in the Salt Lake scene, and the Utah scene, and the Wasatch Valley scene who was able to qualify, and he was just crushing it. And he went 7-1 on day one. And guess what? All eyes in Utah were glued on the Pro Tour. Everyone was watching Brad just crush it in day one. And it was really, really exciting. It drove everyone to be more involved. There were more views, more engagement with the Pro Tour because we all felt like we had a little stake in it. It's like, oh, Brad, it's Brad who beat you, or Brad who I beat, or it's someone from your own community. And that's really exciting. And the fact that they're going to be able to spread the love out throughout all different communities, and people who, are in more remote places, who maybe can't go to as many Grand Prix, it's difficult traveling, but they can go to their PPTQ and they can go qualify for the tournament. Then that gets that whole community excited and engaged to say, hey, did you hear about Andrew who went and he's qualified and he's playing at the Pro Tour? That's exciting stuff. And that's what I think is a really smart move by swinging the pendulum to going to more accessibility and less professional, full-time Magic players. So when these tournaments are going to be back, who knows? I do think that organized play from Wizards is going to happen. I do think Star City Games is going to bring back their tour, and they're just starting with the convention at CGCon this year, and then next year they're going to pivot more into their tour again. What do you think? Do you think that's going to happen? Do you think tabletop's going to come back? Do you think that it's going to be easier to qualify for the Pro Tour, or is the Pro Tour just going to disappear altogether? Let me know in the comments below. And lastly for the day, meta lyrics of the day: let the steel of my resolve be not bested by the sum of my fears. Go out there and accomplish your goals. We'll see you next time.